Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security.
My guest today is Tony Sgro. Tony is the founder and CEO of EdVenture Partners, or EVP. EVP builds industry education partnerships for economic and societal challenges by connecting students, educators, and industry leaders across 900 universities and 76 countries. Tony has more than 40 years of experience in marketing, advertising, and promotion. Tony Sgro, welcome to the Cognitive Crucible.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
Fantastic having you. Well, I want our listeners to understand and know that your firm, EdVenture Partners, it's a bit of a play on words. It's not adventure, it's EdVenture with an ED for education. And you guys have a fantastic motto, which is "The time is now." I'm hoping that you can help fill us in on some of the background there.
I would love to. Well, when you take a look at what's happening in the world, there tends to be a sense of urgency. And for our organization, after 9/11, I received a call from the White House. It was the National Security Council. And they said, "Tony, you've worked with 17 of our federal agencies, intelligence agencies, military branches, doing a variety of different projects. We also know you're Honda's youth agency. You've worked with Bosch and Lomb and Lockheed and AT&T. Your model is pretty interesting. Do you think you could have students develop campaigns to challenge the social media that ISIS is using?" And after I picked my jaw up from the ground, I said, "That's brilliant. But before I say yes, which I will, I need to go to our faculty. Because without our faculty, who are gatekeepers to the projects that we offer students, if they say no, we haven't got a program." Well, 10 hands went up from the 10 faculty that I called. They said, "The time is now. Let us engage with the US government to actually create social media campaigns to push back on targeted violence and extremism around the world." So it was amazing, John, because up until that point, you never really had so many different agencies, the alphabet soups, play together in the sandbox. And we had an interagency partnership at the right time, at the right place, with the right funding mechanism that came together within 2 weeks. And we piloted our peer-to-peer challenging extremism program on 13 countries and 22 different universities in the spring of 2015. Wow. And it just took off from then.
Well, the time truly is now, and you are, I'm sure, finding yourself at the epicenter of some very relevant world activities. We're recording this at the end of June 2020, during the middle of some very interesting, some say worrisome times, relevant to what's happening in the world. So there's, platforms, social media platforms are, very deliberately rolling out campaigns to help counter, worrisome activities on social media, and you guys are right there, helping to pull on the rope in the right direction, like your P2P or your peer-to-peer initiative, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I received that phone call from the NSC, and I was invited to meet with the National Counterterrorism Center, DHS, DOD, CTTSO, and one gray agency within the federal government. Somebody from the US government within the IO community said, "You know what? Government is incapable of doing what needs to be done. We need to mobilize tech-savvy youth who have the social media skills and have the credibility with their peers." And that's really important. Not old baby boomer guys like me, but young people who can really act as the Geiger counter of what's happening in their community by identifying the at-risk, and developing a credible, authentic, and believable social media campaign. So yes, young people really have the skills to do something like this. Plus, from an academic perspective, we love it because, I started this business 30 years ago because I realized so few people actually had the opportunity to have an internship. And I said, let me bring the internship into the classroom. So the students have a real client who has real objectives, gives the class money to spend and says, now go do something. So up until this point of time, it had been around enterprise and sales and marketing and branding, but the timing was perfect to actually have young people develop an initiative, product, or a tool using social and digital media to push back on ISIS. And over the years, like fast forward from spring 2015 to now, we have implemented this program on 76 countries, as you indicated, over 400 times. And we have seen both the US government and also Facebook, because we manage and created the Facebook Global Digital Challenge. Those objectives have changed a bit. At the beginning, we had an overlay of the map that the State Department CT Bureau, Counterterrorism Bureau, would say, these are the countries where this needs to be. And Facebook said, yeah, that makes sense. Iraq, Afghanistan, Northern Africa, Indonesia, Philippines. But then there was a shift. And that overlay became a little different when we started to see Russian propaganda.
This is 2015, 16?
A little after. We started to see changes around 2018, particularly in Eastern Europe and up in the Nordic countries. So Facebook was smart in saying, listen, let's open the aperture. Instead of it just being extremism in CV and PVE related, let's open the aperture to see what people can come up with in these countries where there are real issues with regard to media literacy, Russian propaganda. That's been exciting to see how students picked up on that.
So these peer-to-peer or P2P projects are youngsters who are supervised by professors or faculty members, and they have these creative projects to help counter online threats.
Exactly. So the way the process works is, John, you teach either marketing, social media, advertising, or it could be peace and conflict studies. It could be Western political thought. It might be a special topics course where you want an experiential focused topic over the course of 15 weeks for your students. Our peer-to-peer model is embedded into the syllabus, where students earn anywhere from 50% to 100% of the grade developing a program to make the world safer. We will take a class of historically 20 to 25 students. 75% are undergraduate, which would be junior and senior level, 300 and 400 level courses. The others are master's or MBA level.
Right.
And we break the class up into a real live social media agency. We break it up with a president or an account director. Then we have advertising, app development, budget, because we give the class $1,000. Graphic design, social media, video production, public relations, strategy. So everything that happens in that class is real life. The students get to decide which target audience they develop their campaign for. Is it the at-risk, the silent majority, Muslims who don't speak out? Is it the uncommitted population, those that are kind of intrigued with jihad, but also know it's going to dishonor the family? Or they may mobilize, crowdsource young, motivated, eager, socially conscious college students to be part of the movement. So they get to decide the target audience for their campaigns. They have complete latitude.
Right. And before we started recording this discussion, you were telling me about an especially interesting case with Ukraine, I believe.
Yes. I had the opportunity and the honor of speaking at Cyber Endeavor 2019 at the SRI Institute, where we met. And unbeknownst to me, the Ministry of Defense was in the audience from Ukraine. And knowing that the focus of the Cyber Endeavor conference was IO, I had a couple of really good examples of what peer-to-peer university students, particularly at Maastricht University in the Czech Republic, had done with a program called Fakescape, Escape Fake News. And John, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The Ministry of Defense folks came up to me afterwards and said, we need this in the Ukraine. Will you come join us in Kyiv and make a presentation to a number of people, both at the military academy level and the government? And fast forward, in September of 2020, on 11 campuses in the entire country of Ukraine, university students and military cadets will be developing campaigns to educate about media literacy, disinformation, and source verification. They get to do the program either in Ukrainian, Russian, or English. We give the students entire latitude based upon the target audience and where in the country they want to implement this. This has genuine ramifications for educating a society that's being bombarded by Russia with disinformation. And it's very real. I've been there twice now, and I talk to educators and the Ministry of Defense, and there needs to be an offense against Russia's offense with social media. So this is a frontline effort to mobilize society by invigorating youth to develop these campaigns. And we're thrilled because it's happening. It's happening all the time. I mean, just take a look at the US.
Right. Well, the old adage of reading, writing, and arithmetic is no longer sufficient for the digital age, and equipping the next generation with the toolkit that they need to go out there and be successful and mitigate their risk and for not being vulnerable to all kinds of misinformation, which is just everywhere. And your projects here across the world are aimed right at the heart of contributing to a solution there.
Right at the epicenter. And I have to tell you, when you think about social media, you know what it is that young people want to do more than anything is make highly entertaining, valuable, effective videos. That is the absolute most effective way that we have seen how youth mobilize social media in addressing targeted violence, hate, incels, whatever the social impact issue is, videos. Because not only are they Hollywood production value, I mean, we're seeing stuff coming out of Serbia that could win an Emmy. I mean, unbelievable. Out of Lagos, Nigeria, that is just, I mean, you weep when you see what students are capable of doing. But also on YouTube, the dialogue, the discussion, the comments that these videos generate are really very powerful. So it engages the audience. So videos, and I mean, you have your iPhone or your Samsung phone, you can do anything. So the video is a very powerful tool in addressing some of these social ills.
Right. You were also involved in another campaign sponsored by the McCain Institute, I believe.
Yes.
All relevant here, all part of the P2P, but those university students put together just some stunning videos, and a couple were just amazing presentations all about countering the incel movement, the involuntary celibate movement, and some of the, not some, but the general misogynist and potentially violent tendencies of the young men who find themselves wrapped up in that incel movement.
Yep. Well, you bring up a good point. What we've learned with peer-to-peer, John, is we don't want our program to be prescriptive. By that I mean, when we define what the objectives are, we keep it broad enough to allow for various interpretations. And you saw that with our program with the McCain Institute, which is to design campaigns to prevent hate and school-based violence. So when we say we want you to create an initiative, product, or a tool to prevent hate and school-based violence, well, as you saw, Missouri State University said, you know what, we really want to come down the age ladder and talk to 3rd, fourth, and fifth graders who are in the formative years of either developing or not developing empathy, tolerance, understanding of their fellow students and friends. Or at Arizona State, where there is a problem with microaggression and young men who can't get dates, involuntary celibate, incels who are violent. And in their video, they demonstrated the destruction and the murder that one young man implemented in the community. One other thing that was fascinating that we had to do, and as you know, come March, when the world changed with COVID, our typical in-class model, where we have a professor and the students sitting in a room who work on the project over the course of the semester, within 3 days, we had to pivot to an entirely online distance learning peer-to-peer program. And these students did it. And we were happy to see our model was able to accommodate that pivot in education format. But the peer-to-peer project with the McCain Institute was, I love it because it's domestic. And Lord knows we have a lot of problems right here with hate and violence, and particularly school violence.
Yeah. Well, as the father of a 13-year-old girl, everything that you're saying as far as, what these, the go-to for these young folks and how they engage on social media, video is where it's at. All of that resonates with my parental observations, and so it doesn't surprise me that that's the kind of feedback that that you would have from having observed a number of these projects.
Well, what we've been amazed by too, and this was a completely unintended consequence. Every semester, we see approximately 25% of the campaigns, the P2P campaigns that are implemented, continue on after the semester ends. As a nonprofit, as an NGO, as a 501c3, as a legacy program of the university. As an example, the key campaign for third, fourth, and fifth graders, which was the winning campaign implemented by Missouri State University, has applied for one of the 20 approximately DHS grants to sustain and continue on their program. We have a program called Op250, University of Massachusetts Lowell, who received a $1.2 million grant from DHS to continue its good peer-to-peer work. We have a campaign in Nigeria, Women Against Violent Extremism. It's 4 years old. So there's lots of examples of these campaigns that have truly excited and motivated the young people, the university students who initially went through the peer-to-peer program to say, you know what, I never thought I could do this for a living. This is what I want to do.
Well, 900 universities, 76 countries. That, I've got a strict policy never to do math in public, but that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of youngsters who are are presumably walking away with a positive social media experience that they were in charge of, that they contributed, and are learning how to engage in that medium in a positive way that is doing some good in the world. So you and your folks are really seeding a very positive effort into the next generation. I always like to ask our guests if they have, something on their nightstand that you're currently reading, or is there a go-to book that is relevant in this discussion topic that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I really enjoyed a book written by Clint Watts, a former FBI special agent, Army officer, and leading cybersecurity expert, called "Messing with the Enemy." And John, I picked it up because when we got the work with Ukraine, and knowing specifically that it was focused around Russian propaganda, social media, and hacking, this book was made in heaven for me. And it's great, number one, but I like it because he actually has two things that I think were very interesting. One is, he said, we need like a seal of approval, a consumer report that could be given to media outlets that verifies that they're doing things correctly. Fake news, fiction, subjective opinion versus objective reporting. That's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's great. It's like an industry standard. And then he also, to help the layman, he developed these protocols. It's like a cookbook, a recipe of different areas of involvement like competency, motivation, product, and process that we all should be deploying when we see something where the slightest amount of doubt says, you know what, I'm not going to take that for gospel. I'm actually going to have my antennae go up and I'm going to do some homework. He has like a methodology to determine, is this fake news? Author verification, and a number of other elements that allow us to become knowledgeable and media literate instead of gullible consumers of fake news. The book is great. The book is superb.
Yeah, dynamite. Thanks. We'll definitely put a link to that into the show notes. And Tony, congratulations on all of your success and doing some very positive stuff in the world. And thank you so much for being on the Cognitive Crucible.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.